Good evening, everybody. Uh, just getting started here. Tonight is going to be our presentation titled Milwaukee Underwater, the Connect River and Basin. My name is Brendan Baylott. I'm going to be your host tonight. And we're a little early here, about 3 minutes out, so I'm going to give people a chance to join. So I'm going to hang around, have a little bit of silence, and we'll get started here in a few minutes. Um, so bear with me. Looks like we've got some people starting to join. We're going to get going in about two minutes here. We'll kick off with introductions, get everything rolling. Just for those of you who are just joining, uh, I can see your comments in real time. So if you do have questions during the chat or during the presentation, feel free to type those in, and I can respond to them. We'll get started in just about a minute. Good to see some folks posting. Thanks for joining, Dave. Glad you can see it and hear me. All right. Well, it looks like it's 7 o'clock on the money. So I'm going to get rolling here. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's live stream by the Wisconsin Underwater Archaeology Association. Tonight's live stream is titled Milwaukee Underwater, the Connect River and Basin. This is intended to be part of a larger series that I'm going to be doing on titled Milwaukee Underwater. Where I want to feature some of the underwater archaeology survey work that we've done over the past few years. It's gone mostly unpublished, and we figured this would be a good way to get it out there and share it with the public and let people know what kind of interesting underwater history lies on the bottom in Milwaukee's urban waterways. So hopefully we can show you some of that tonight. By way of introduction, my name is Brendan Baylod, and I'm a citizen scientist. I'm also the president of the Wisconsin Underwater Archaeology Association. The WUAA is a citizen science organization. We've been around for about 35 years, and our main focus is assisting the State Historical Society of Wisconsin with underwater field work. We were founded right after the Abandoned Shipwreck Act of 1987 awarded about 1,000 historic shipwrecks to the states or to the state of Wisconsin, and we were formed as an avocationalist group to help the state. We now partner with the Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast National Marine Sanctuary as well as the Wisconsin Maritime Museum to help the public engage. So if you're interested in underwater archaeology, if you're interested in Great Lakes shipwrecks, or even inland sites such as Native American sites, we might be a good organization for you to get to know and explore. So a little bit more about me. You might know me from my book, Fathoms Deep But Not Forgotten, Wisconsin's Lost Ships, which is a complete reference to ships that were lost in Wisconsin waters between Kenosha and Port Washington. This came out in 2008. It's out of print, unfortunately, but there are a few overpriced copies still available on Amazon. This sort of is what got me interested in what lies on the bottom of Milwaukee's waterways, because there have been hundreds and hundreds of ships lost, not just off Milwaukee, but also in the harbor and in the rivers, and also abandoned there. Historic vessels and a lot of other interesting things are on the bottom too. So this is sort of what got me started. I also do shipwreck hunting on the Great Lakes, looking for historical sites. Many of you may have seen the news release about the discovery of the schooner Trinidad that my colleague Bob Jake and I located last summer. This was a very significant historical vessel off Algoma, Wisconsin, that we found in about 270 feet of water with side scanning sonar. But generally speaking, I am a guy who likes to do underwater sensing. This is Bob and I at Milwaukee. Uh, we have a couple of different boats we use. For the Milwaukee project, we used my small boat because it was good for getting into shallow areas. And I would add that Bob and I are both close friends with Jerry Geyer, the sort of legendary Milwaukee dive shop owner and underwater surveyor. And in many ways, he was our mentor. Jerry's boat's a little big to get into some of the places we went, and also he looks for shipwrecks, whereas we were mostly doing a hydrographic survey, mapping the bottom, looking for archaeological sites. So Bob and I spent, I think, 3 weekends total painting the bottom of all of Milwaukee's bottomlands, which is quite an interesting project for us. This is kind of what it looks like. We were at Milwaukee. This is my boat, and there's the Deep Vision Little Eye on the bow. That's the sonar we use. This is an archaeological quality side scanning sonar. It's not meant for finding shipwrecks in deep water that are, a quarter of a mile away from the boat. It's really meant for finding small objects and for mapping the bottom to show small debris, basically things you either know are already there or suspect are already there. And it creates very, very high resolution maps of what the bottom looks like. And that's fairly important when dealing with an area like Milwaukee. So this is an example of the kind of resolution we get. This is right off of St. Francis Seminary. Many of you in Milwaukee will be familiar with this site, where you see the little mark here. This is on the map. This is where the wreck of the sidewheel steamer Sebastopol happened. And this is what remains of her. This is her bow stem post and some pieces of her keel that remain. And you can see all the different rocks on the bottom. I mean, it's fairly high resolution. Everything the size of a football or better is shown here. So we do get to really see some detail. And this is actually at a pretty good range. We can zoom it in even further than that. So that should give you an idea. I am going to talk a little bit about the sonar technology. I'm also going to talk about, then we're going to take a tour. I'm going to show you the bottom of the KK completely. So we'll see how that goes. This is an example of what we get to see. The software that we'll be using that comes with the Deep Vision sonar lets us mosaic our tracks onto a chart, nautical charts. So you can see one of our surveys here went up the Milwaukee River. We've actually gone all the way up the Milwaukee, all the way up to the Menominee, through the canals, and all the way down the KK, and painted the entire bottom. We didn't do much out in the outer harbor because Jerry Geyer's already covered a lot of that and has done exceptional work, and we don't need to redo Jerry's work. A few other things to show you. Oh, this is our work in the canals. So that we went all the way up the Menominee. You can see we got really far, and we found some really interesting stuff. I'm going to do that Menominee and the canals in a future episode. Here on the Burnham Canal, you'll see that we had to stop at the bridge. This further part of the Burnham Canal is now being turned into wetland, which is kind of cool. It was really filled in with sediment already, so we didn't think we'd find much scanning it. I should add too, we're not the only people to have done this. There's been some other surveys being done. However, I think we are the only people to have painted the Milwaukee, the KK, and the Menominee all the way up. And of course, we're the only ones that are making this public. These other things were done as private surveys. So this is the Deep Vision Little Eye. So a little more about this. This is essentially a missile that's towed behind the boat. There's a 60-foot cable. We generally don't deploy very much of the cable. It's usually only a few feet. We deploy it off the bow of the boat. And the fish flies through the water. It has a transducer on either side of the fish that emits an acoustical ping. And there's also a listening device, a piezoelectric emitter that receives the signal back on both sides. And it creates a stereo picture of the bottom of the lake or the river on either side of the boat that's anywhere from 15 feet out to 450 feet out on either side. So it's quite an effective unit. We can either do very fine grained searching for small objects, or we can look at a larger scale if we want. It hooks into my laptop directly through this USB cable. So it's really small. We've used this on the Crawfish River off Aztalan to map the ancient fish weir complex that was off the ancient Cahokian village that was there. So it's really a versatile unit. It can work in as little as 2 or 3 feet of water. So a couple other things I want to address before we dive into the material. Why side scan Milwaukee? I guess is a good question. Part of the reason we wanted to do this project is because of the regentrification of the waterways. A lot of objects and material are being removed from the river bottoms as a result of this regentrification. A lot of the old industrial areas back here that were part of the coal industry in Milwaukee or were part of the tanning industry are being torn down, and this is being reclaimed because it's prime waterfront real estate now that the river's been cleaned up in many ways. You often see kayakers and paddleboarders here now. And so as this work is done, a lot of these archaeological remains that potentially are on the bottom are being disturbed. And so that's one of the big reasons that we want to survey and locate archaeological materials on the bottom of the river. The other concern, though, and the reason why diving isn't the best for this, is that many areas of the rivers in Milwaukee have industrial pollutants just beneath the biological mat that's accumulated. And that biological mat serves to kind of form a little barrier from those pollutants. But if you were to get down there and break through that and stir that up, those pollutants would flush out. And some of them are quite toxic, particularly from the tanneries and some of the other larger industries that existed on the river historically. So side scanning sonar is an ideal way to map what lies on the bottom. Also, the river generally has poor underwater visibility. If you put a diver down there, you can barely see your hand in front of your face. And the technology for sonar has really improved dramatically. So you're going to see that we get a lot better imagery than acoustically than perhaps a sonar would have just a few years ago. So I'm going to show you some of the details. I already mentioned that we've scanned the entire area. But I'm going to show you some of the details of what the scans look like, and we'll walk through. And I'm going to just basically take you through the bottom and give you a tour of the KK River and everything that's on the bottom. So bear with me. I'm going to get that started right now. All right. So you should be looking at my my software, my in the map of the Milwaukee lower inner harbor. So this is the software that I use, and every one of these files here on the left is a sonar track that I recorded, and then this is the map, and I can split the screen like this, and now on the bottom we're seeing the map with the overlay of where the scan track was, and in the top you're seeing the actual sonar data. So I'm going to first of all explain to you kind of what we were doing here, and then I'm going to talk about what we're looking at on the upper panel. So, looking at the map, first of all, by itself, one of the things you're going to see is that we were right here by the present day sewage treatment plant. The reason we chose this little track here to run right off the bat was that this is the site of the old incineration plant that Milwaukee used back around the turn of the century. And there should be, or at least historically, two tugboats, two historic Milwaukee wooden tugboats, the Golden and the Sioux, that's Sioux, were abandoned here. We didn't expect to find them because one of the things you notice is that this has been dredged to project depth, right? So wherever you see the light blue, the darker blue, that's the shallow area that may be somewhat original, but the lighter white area has been dredged to project depth, which is around 30 feet by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. What that means is that anything we're going to image in these white areas has been deposited more recently. That doesn't mean that it's not interesting, and it doesn't mean that it's not necessarily historic. It just means that it's probably a more recent deposition. Um, all right, so back to the split screen. On the top, when I scroll down, you basically get to see what we went over. Now, this looks like a kind of like a highway, a road in the middle with some weird stuff on either side. What this center line is represents the towfish, and the darker column material here is the water column, right? The beam lets out a ping. The top of the beam hits the surface of the water, and that's what this line is here, just to the left of the center. And then it hits the bottom of the beam, hits the bottom of the water. And that's the lake bottom or river bottom. And then this big plumy thing you see here on the left is the shoreline. And it's really bright because this is riprap. This is metal uh, um, shoreline reinforcement. And it's very bright because the metal makes a loud sound. Over on the right side here, you see an object on the bottom. And it looks to me, because it's very dark, like it is biological or just earth, because it doesn't give you a bright signature. It absorbs the acoustical wave. But one of the things that's kind of cool that I can do is I can measure it. So if you look here and I drag my cursor over it, whoopsies, come on, this is about 18 feet long, this feature here. And I would say it stands up about 4 feet. So it's probably just a piece of dredging that was dropped off here, or something that fell off of a barge, something of that nature. I can play this by hitting the playback button. This is what Bob and I see as it goes by, as we see the bottom crawl by, and we get to see what comes up on the bottom as we go. And you can see in this instance, we didn't see the tugboats over here near the shore. We didn't expect to. But we did see this unusual piece of material on the bottom. I'm going to show you a feature that I want to discuss. That's on the right channel. You can see this little kind of snake-shaped thing right around the 50-foot mark. And I should add, too, that we are scanning at about 80 feet per channel here. So that's not too wide of a track. The thing you see on the right is an echo of the shoreline of the revetment on the left. Anytime you get really bright, hard metallic surfaces on one side, they bounce off and they bounce all the way across and come back and are shown on the other channel. This is known as an echo. So you might see this in some places. It's nothing on the bottom. It's just what I call a ghost echo from the hard steel revetment that's on the left. So that was our first track where we went and looked here for these two tugs, and obviously we found nothing. I do want to show you one little object. So at 80 feet, you can see, I can zoom in here. At 80 feet, there's a small object here on the bottom that's probably about 5 feet long, and I'm going to zoom it, and you can get a look at that. Here it comes. Just a little dark feature. I just think it's another piece of biological bottom or something that spilled over onto the bottom. It's no more than 5 feet. So I'm gonna really quickly come back and just make sure that everyone is getting good contact with. Anybody have any trouble seeing? If so, post something or hearing me. If not, we'll continue. So that's sort of the basics. Now I'm going to start moving into the more interesting material for you. All right, I'm going to shut this one off, and we're going to go to a different one now. This next piece that we scanned is quite interesting. This is one of the bigger scans that we did. We started off, and we came across sort of the entry to the KK turning basin right off of the UW Milwaukee Great Lakes Research Facility slip. And we followed the shoreline down by the KK, and then we went by the Continental grain elevator, and boy, did we see some interesting stuff. So this is a pretty long run, but well worth seeing, and I will play it and I'll discuss it as it goes by. Um, all right, here it is. So first of all, let's do a, whoops, cancel that. Let's do a play. All right, you can see we're having pretty good seeing wall to wall here. We're shooting about 160 feet per channel. And you can see extreme detail on the bottom on either side of the boat, 160 feet. So that's about, 320-foot wide. Here we come out, we're encountering the shore. There's the slip on the right into the UWM research facility. You can see some striations on the bottom from the original dredging. Here we're running over some just general texture on the bottom that's somewhat interesting. These splotches in the water column are actually schools of baitfish, which are quite interesting. Now you start to see some round objects on the bottom. These round objects on the bottom, I believe, are tires. Each one of them is almost exactly 36 inches in diameter. I think they're from fenders, tires that were used as fenders on the docks. As we come up the river, you're going to start to see something that looks like a volcano going off on the left here. I'm going to stop right now just so you can to discuss this. What these are the wake from power boats. So there's a boat here, and you can't see the hull, but you can see its propeller is making this turbulence in the water. And what it does is it changes the, and you can see it right here, it changes the density of the water because the propeller agitates the water, and it makes it show up as a milky sort of surface in the water. And you can see that elsewhere where there's turbulence in the water, and that turbulence looks kind of milky. Let's continue. So you can see some pock marks and things, and debris on the bottom, small objects that have been lost. But then when we get near the Continental grain elevator, you're going to start to see some larger objects on the bottom that we think are somewhat interesting from an archaeological perspective. We have right here a small square object. This is obviously something man-made on the bottom. Also on the right here, we've got a pile of rather reflective debris. I'm not going to stop and go through it right now. I'm going to keep playing because there's more to come. Whoa, hold on. Bear with me. It looks like things have frozen up a little bit. I'm going to give it a second. Just check and make sure that everything's still working. All right. Back to the river. All right, we're good. Let's start playing back again. Okay, you can see some more tires on the bottom. They're kind of stretched a little bit. They're not perfectly round because there's a little bit of stretching going on. Here we have another object on the bottom off of this little point. That's fairly good size. We're not exactly sure what that is. I'm going to go ahead and measure it. It's about 12 or 13 feet long. I'm going to put it non-stretch. So this is the actual, it actually distorts a little bit. This is in a non-distorted way. I think it's probably just debris that fell off a vessel. We'll continue on. You can see some other things on the bottom out here. Here you can see an echo from the revetment here on the outside. And as we approach the Continental grain elevator, you're going to see a lot more details start to emerge and a lot more debris on the bottom. This is a historic area where a lot of vessels were moored. And over the many years that so many vessels have come in here, a lot of material has been lost off of the decks of these vessels and are on the bottom. And in particular, I want to draw your attention to this object that just entered our screen. This is one of the more interesting objects that we found during our search. This object right here is roughly 16 feet long or so, and it stands up off the bottom quite a bit. And as you can see, it has a very distinctive shape to it. I'm going to zoom it right now. And my assessment of what this object is that it's either a recreational boat or it's a vehicle, perhaps a pickup truck. I'm going to go ahead and let the zoom come on. Now you get a much better a better view of it. That looks exactly like a pickup truck, if you ask me. I can see a cab, I can see a hood, and I can see a bed. Um, One of the interesting features of this sonar is that I can put my cursor over any object and see the exact coordinates of it, GPS in great detail. So if any of you are interested in learning the coordinates of any of these objects, let me know. I'm happy to share them. But I believe this is a pickup truck on the bottom. Let's continue onward for a little bit. And we'll see a lot of material in the water column here. And again, this is just about off the continental grain elevator. We see a lot of material that has been essentially lost off of ships and barges here. Um, what, you might ask, is all this white stuff in the water column? These are fish. For whatever reason, there are a lot of schools of fish off of the continental grain elevator. They were that day, quite a few, in fact. You can see some more debris here that's starting to come up near the shore from various commercial vessels losing material and just things being lost offshore that were pretty good sized. A lot of this stuff is probably just debris from being churned up by vessel propellers. I'm going to blow this one up just to take a quick look. Bear with me. There it comes. So you can see, again, there's a tire there, and it looks just like debris. Now, one of the things to note is that there's a fine layer of biological mat over just about everything down here. So even if it is a piece of wood, it's not going to show really brightly every time because it has potentially some mat over it. Here's another object off to the right here that I judge is about 10 foot by 10 foot square, and it's right off the revetment. It looks like it was dumped or fell over. So kind of an interesting object here. Here you can see a very clear tire in the right channel. That was probably a bumper or a fender that was lost off the shore. There's another one here off this little point. And again, you can see that off in the left channel, there's just not a whole lot on the bottom because it was dredged to project depth. And it's very clean. Not much has been lost in there. Here you see some more objects. They're probably from vessels laying on the bottom. Some wood, maybe a piece of deck rail. Some more tires, obviously, on the bottom. We're starting to get to the end now, and of our run along the KK, and you can kind of see that what kind of debris is there in the dredged area. There's this spot off to the left where something is on the bottom. It's looks like it's formed a little bit of a little hole there in the bottom. Okay, here we're coming right down to the end of the turning basin now. And at the end, it just sort of pinches off because we take a really sharp turn with the boat. But I'm going to stop it here. And you can see you start to get some debris down here in this corner. This is an area where a lot of vessels used to shelter and spend the winter. And so, over the years, things have been lost over the edge. All right, so that was track number 2. We're going to start to look at that. Was a long track, too, so probably one of the longer ones you're going to see here. Let's go back to the view and bring up the next track line that we're going to look at. And the next track line is another run along the Continental Grain Elevator that we did because of all the cool stuff we were seeing. I'm going to take a look at that real quick and just let you see what that looks like. Let's play that one. So this is just a second run. It's much shorter, and it's a higher resolution. So we were running at about 150 feet per channel. We synced it down to 80 feet per channel to run over this material again and see what it looks like from the other direction. Um, and I'm not seeing a whole lot on this one. I think we probably didn't hit the whole area. Let's just see. Yeah, I'm going to go back and do the other one. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to show you the big run up the KK. So we went, I think, two full passes in here. This is should be a very interesting thing to view. So, okay, let's start playing and see what we get. So here we're going into the KK River. Now there should be a lot in here. This was not all dredged to project depth, and you will see that there's quite a bit of debris and deposition from over the years here on the bottom of the river. A few historical things that were here. The Grand Trunk car ferry docks were present on the left, and some of the big car ferries, like the car from Milwaukee that wrecked off Milwaukee, departed from in there. There's also a few historic shipyards. So as we go in, you can start to see a lot of deposition on the bottom of man-made objects. None of them are extremely large. We're at 160 feet per channel here. So we're looking at fairly small, you're going to see a fairly large swath of the bottom here. So pretty much from wall to wall as we go up to enter the KK River. Here you can see that there's a lot of material laying on the bottom just off of the shoreline. Some of these are the bottoms of boat hulls. It does pick up some of the deeper boat hulls that are sitting there. It'll pick up some dock pilings too as we go. So there's an object here on the left in this part of the river that we couldn't quite explain. It looks like a big flat, potentially a barge that sank there. It's definitely on the bottom. And it gets dark here because the bottom gets really soft and there's a lot of sediment. But there it is. You can kind of see it's next to what we think is a part of a dock. But that's definitely, it looks to us like a construction barge that was sunk there at some point. That's on the bottom. Let's continue on. On the right, you can see that there's some logs and debris. You can also see the echo of the revetment on the left. But you can see a lot of biological debris as we go up the river. Here is a bridge. This is what a bridge looks like, and it's very loud because of the revetment, the metallic revetment. This is an interesting place to look for human remains and other things if we were to, and I think we do go by at higher resolution, and so you do get to see some of that. This is an interesting spot right here. I'm going to pause it. This area is the site, we think, of a former boatyard that historically was there. We think that a lot of this material is left over from the dock. We think there may have been a marine railway there as well. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this, and you can see what that debris looks like. Here it comes. You can see there's quite a lot there. It comes up off the bottom a ways, but again, a lot of it's somewhat covered with biological mat. A lot of sediment gets moved out the KK every year, and so the material does become covered, not completely, but it doesn't have a lot of the texture that it would otherwise have. Continuing up the river, you can see there's some debris that's been dumped in various places by industrial work. Here we come up on the next bridge. Now, I should mention there are some historical vessels that were abandoned in here, but were removed. And this is part of the reason why we're side scanning the river, is we want to make sure that there are no other historic vessels in here that are below the waterline. By the First Street Bridge, there was a Gillen tug that was there formerly, that was removed. It was surveyed by the Wisconsin DNR back in the 1990s, by Mark Dudzik, the DNR's archaeologist at the time. There is also historically a fairly interesting vessel up past the bridge that we looked for. It was a Spanish War captured trophy called the Sandoval, and the Sandoval was, I'm going to pause here, was brought to the Great Lakes, and eventually was bought and turned into a private yacht. It was abandoned here in the KK River, and many people will have heard of it who are maritime historians. We did not find any evidence of it. It was mostly removed in the 1930s, and I believe the rest of it was removed subsequent to that. But here you can see just sediment that gathers on the river. You can see how it gets shallower here. There's a big bar of sediment that is gathered. Here we see a log that's come down the river. That's that bright white piece just on the left. You can see there's quite a bit of variability in depth on the KK, just from sediment that's carried down by flood events. These are docks on the right, these white pings, the ends of piers. And as we get up towards the end of the navigable part of the river, you see it really, really shallows up. And this is the area where we were particularly interested in finding if there was any debris. The sonar does quite a nice job, even in very shallow water, of mapping the features of the bottom. And so you can see, there's some logs in here and some stumps and things. But generally speaking, we're not seeing what I would consider any hard or fascinating targets on the bottom. There's something here that we just went by. Oops. Just jumped right by it. Sorry about that. There's something here that we went by that's on the bottom, a couple of little objects, but at 160 feet, I don't think they're significant. I'm going to zoom that one just to take a quick look at it. So you can see we're getting a fairly good seeing here. We really are seeing kind of wall to wall what the bottom of the KK River is like. And yeah, it's probably a tree stump root ball that's just stuck in the bottom there. That would be my guess. There's a lot of much smaller debris down there, and if we were to scan it at higher resolution, we probably would see more and probably see smaller things that were identifiable. But the downside is that that takes a long time, and you have to really steer very straight. All right, I'm gonna move on to some of the other scans that we did. Let's see. Shut this one off. All right, we came further down the KK looking for the Sandoval here, and we were kind of interested in what that looked like down in the shallower part of the river. So I'm going to play that for you. So we got past the bridge here, and we were shooting pretty good imagery. Here we're only on 80 feet per channel because the river gets quite a bit narrower. And again, looking for debris. Here we see a big log just sticking out of the bottom. You can actually see its shadow on the left, which is quite interesting. And again, a pretty undifferentiated bottom, except for these big bars of sand that have accumulated. There's also vegetation on a lot of it, which is why it's got this textured appearance to it. So you can see we went up looking for the Sandoval, looking to see if any other old tugboats were abandoned up there. And you can see all the way to the right shore on this, and there really isn't anything. There's just some what we would call expected debris on the bottom. So the KK is really pretty clean. I would say that is not the case with the other rivers in Milwaukee. They have a good deal more debris on the bottom than the KK. All right, let's move on. and see what else we have here to show you. We did another little shot here. This will be quick of that bridge. That I think this is that. Yeah, it's the old shipyard area. This was just a quick pass to get more detail on here and see if we could make out any vessel remains. There is something interesting over here on the right. You can see where there's this revetment echo, and on this little hump, and here we're down to 80 feet. It seems to be. I don't think it's a caisson. I think something sunk here. Um, it could be a small vessel. Let's wait for the yeah. This object right here is fairly square, and it does look like a small boat. Um, on the bottom. It's covered with some biological mat that makes its signature a little quiet, so it doesn't stand up real clear. I'm going to just go to non-stretched on that. You can see a little bit better what it looks like, that it's an object sitting down there in about, I'd say, 15 to 20 feet of water. It doesn't come up very far off the bottom. Then here's that area we described as the old boatyard area, the old marine railway, and there's obviously a lot of debris on the bottom off there, but we're not sure what it is. We did go over it, I think maybe again at higher resolution as well. So let's take a look and see if we did. Shut that one off. Check out this one. All right, yeah, it looks like we did. Let's have a look at it. So this one is a little further. We went back out to 160 feet resolution on this and painted it one more time. And again, you can see the docks, you can see the debris here, and you can see what we thought was a little boat off of. Um, this is where it was right here on the right channel. On the left is that pile of debris from the old boat works. And there's a lot of we're getting exceptional seeing here. You can really see the texture of the bottom. You can see all of the detail of what's on the bottom of the river here in really great definition. Um, and again, there's some small objects, but no major things that I'd call a shipwreck. But it's really exceptional seeing in this image here. And we got seeing like this almost throughout our survey, where we just got excellent acoustical imagery of all of Milwaukee's river bottoms. And in many instances, we found some unusual stuff. I think the main takeaway on this one was that I think that there's a pickup truck off of the Continental grain elevator. And then I think we have a small vessel that's somewhat embedded in the bottom in here. And then we have this old shipyard area. And I believe these are probably all part of the same complex because it just, you see the water column here, but these are probably associated with each other, this debris field. All right, let's take a look at the last track, which is another pass outward. And we'll take a look at that. I'm not sure if that had a lot in it, but here we go. All right, and again, you can see more debris on the bottom. I don't see. This is pretty busy. I don't see anything that really jumped out at us. There's some pretty dark, shadowy area here. Some of this stuff, when we were going over it, it may look like there was something on the side here, but it was actually a boat hull, a floating boat. Sometimes the boat will come down 5 feet down into the water, and then the sonar will pick it up as if it was a feature. That's what some of these little lighter colored things are over on the right channel. But as you can see, the bottom here is mostly nondescript with the occasional tire that's fallen. We do have some wake features from boats that were in there with us. But you get the idea that it's fairly clear of major objects. So what you see on the right here, these are two big like caissons at the end of a bridge, probably associated with probably fenders, like what do they call those? They're meant to prevent a boat from crashing into the shore. Here you see three more on the right here on the outside. These are great big wooden uh, fender structures. On the left channel, you see some wooden debris on the bottom. I'm going to take a little look at that. I hadn't really noticed that before. I'm going to zoom it, see what it looks like. It has a little bit of a pointed characteristic to it on the right. Makes it look like it possibly could be a bow feature of a vessel. And again, you see this on a pretty undifferentiated. Ooh, that was fast. On a pretty undifferentiated bottom, and so it looks like it could be something that shouldn't be there. You can see we had a boat going by us at this time. That's what this plume is. There we go. Yeah, probably not a boat feature. It looks just like some man-made wood, but I don't think that's a vessel bow. But you get the idea then of how we interpret these images. They're acoustical images of the bottom that look kind of like what you would see if you were flying over an airplane, you know, or something of that nature, with the water drained from the river. They're very instructive and very interesting to look at. All right, we're just a few minutes in left in what I wanted to show you tonight. So this will give you a good idea of what we were able to see with our sonar. We have a number of other places that we scanned. We did, like I said, the whole Menominee Valley. We did the entire Milwaukee River all the way up to the dam. And then this, of course, is our survey of the KK. So if anyone's interested in any of the locations of any of the material that we located in here, let me know. I'm happy to share if you want to go check out what looks like a pickup truck off of the Continental Grain Elevator there. Let me know. And if you have any other questions about anything else that is on the bottom in Milwaukee, let me know. We've scanned a lot of these inner areas. We haven't only done Milwaukee. We've done Racine, the Root River. We've done Kenosha. We've done Manitowoc, Kewaunee, a few other areas as well. A little bit in Sturgeon Bay. And so we have pretty good bottom bathymetry and archaeological record of what's on the bottom in a lot of these different parts of the lake or different parts of Wisconsin. All right. Dolphins. Thank you. I can finally see the comments. That's exactly what they're called, dolphins. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. There we go. All right. So that's all I have for tonight. This is, as I said, a part of an ongoing series, Milwaukee Underwater, where I'm going to review our side scan work throughout Milwaukee's rivers. I think next week or the week after, I will do the Menominee River Valley. And we did find at least two ships in there. We found a historic vessel as well as a more modern vessel. And we found quite a few other interesting and unusual features. The Menominee was really rather busy compared to the KK in terms of what's on the bottom. So stay tuned for me to post that for the Menominee River. And then also we will do the Milwaukee River all the way up to the dam in a future episode. And as you can see, the sonar was pretty good. This is a commercial grade sonar. It's again available from deepvision.se. It's made in Sweden. And it's really nice and small and easy to use. And the results we get are really outstanding. It is a fairly high frequency sonar, and then its beam characteristics enable it to really give a very good image of what the bottom looks like. And at closer ranges, it would be very useful, say, for a sheriff's department looking for human remains. At more distant ranges, it's very useful for archaeological survey, where we're looking to see if there's anything important on the bottom. We didn't do a lot of close-up on this particular survey. The remaining ones we did some where we were shooting only like 30 feet per channel. It was very difficult when you get in that tight. You have to go very, very straight, and it comes out looking distorted sometimes. So we didn't do a lot of that. All right. If anybody has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat afterwards, and I'll answer them. I will be taking this video and uploading it to YouTube. This has been a tour of what it looks like on the bottom of the KK River, as if it was drained of water by courtesy of the modern technology of side scan sonar. So thank you everybody for joining me, and have a nice evening. Good night.